Hello, everybody. Good evening and welcome to the Sunday night Reef Talk live stream, where today I'm joined by a very special guest indeed, Mr. Andrew Sandler. How are you, Andrew?
Hello, and thank you, Alex. Thank you, everybody. Nice to be here.
Excellent. So we've got, well, let me just go over to the comments just to make sure I've got everything on my screen as well. So we're going to be talking about the tank behind you, which is a 17,000 gallon aquarium. We'll come on to that. We'll get into some questions and talking about the setup and all that sort of stuff in a second. Excuse me. But firstly,
Alex, it's actually probably holding about 15,000 gallons of water at the moment. We're running the engines a little slower, so the extra inch and a fraction in the tank is about 1,500 gallons.
So the volume depends on the pumps.
On the speed of the pumps, sure.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get into that because I want to talk about kind of the equipment and all that sort of stuff. So, but for those who don't know, so Andrew is first and foremost a hobbyist of what, 30 years you've been in the hobby, something like that.
Long time, yeah. Longer than 30 years.
Longer than 30 years. Oh, so you were back in the days when we thought, a coral was supposed to be white and you were scrubbing it to keep it white, and under gravel filters and.
Oh, I did my share of under gravel filters. Yes, reverse flows and all that stuff. Yes,
indeed. So you've got a long old history, and the aquarium behind you is one of a few in your house. And this, I can't work out if it's the largest private aquarium in the world, but it's probably up there. It's probably one. There might be people who've got one that don't share it, but it's one of the largest private aquariums.
It depends whether it's filled or what it's filled with, and vice versa. But I'm comfortable that we have the most water in their house because,
really?
With all the tanks and all the systems, we think we're near 30,000 in the house.
Total. Oh, okay. So that's quarantine systems, other display tanks.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Okay. So you got a fair amount of salt water in your house, but also this is so. I kind of the closest thing I've seen to a tank like that is in public aquariums in the UK. They have some tanks that are a reasonable size, and they do put corals in. But with the greatest of respect to the public aquariums I've been to, the corals never look that healthy. There's usually a lot of aptasia, and they're not there for sort of the enthusiast. They're there for the everyday person. Whereas your aquarium is like a normal reef tank, only just crazy supersize. And you have I was looking back at the videos before this stream. And even 6 months ago, the corals seem to, I don't know if you've just added a ton more, but they just seem to just grow and grow and grow.
Both. And we raised the bar on the public aquariums. It wasn't a goal of mine when we set out to do this, but certainly as I look back, that was an obvious thing that was going to happen. This tank, the crazy thing is I probably have more coral in the back ready to go, or saving up, or for swap outs, or we have a whole thing back there. I probably could seriously fill this tank up with another 30, 40, 50% in 2 or 3 dives.
So is that corals you've kind of fragged and are keeping aside, or is this new stuff to come in?
New stuff that we may save for the 2,500 or other systems that we're planning in the house. Stuff that we just haven't gotten to yet. Stuff that we rotated out. Stuff that we think maybe the the polyps are even too nice, and the butterflies might go after them. That kind of thing.
Okay. But rather a lot of corals, and I can't. There's an aquarium in the UK that it's not the size of that, but it's that kind of scale, and it looks fantastic. It's got a ton of chromis and load of anemones, but the guy struggles to keep corals, whereas your corals just look like they would do in any reef tank or any well-run reef tank anyway. And the first thing that strikes me with this tank, I'm a coral guy. But man, you've got some fish in there. I don't suppose you even know how many fish you've actually got.
Yeah, we kind of we this is a true story. Somewhere in the Amphius goby stage, which was obviously towards the end, and you're adding those gobies, wrasses, and we lost track in quarantine. and I asked Yeltsin like how many went in, and like he looked at me, and then after that we just stopped counting. But Rashid and I actually went species by species the other day. Other than I couldn't count the Amphius and the Wrasses and the Gobies, obviously, and we have a count. Other than I have to estimate those other three, but we think we're probably in the 4 to 550 range in that zip code.
Okay, 500 fish in a home aquarium. So you've got a few, and the other thing that strikes me is the kind of fish you've got. So I can see a raw time butterfly that's just swam past. I think a conspic angel. There was a bandit angel as well. And so this means that you must not be able to keep LPS, right? Or do you?
I would not attempt
No.
LPS in this tank. There are some things that you could get away with anemones if you stuff like if you cage them first and you get the clownfish in them to protect them. There are some things you can do. I don't know, things like Favia. There are some things you can do. But in general, if it's fleshy and it moves, it's probably not going to work in this tank.
do you know, actually, so that fleshy is the word, because I can see behind your right elbow, there's a chalice from the looks, quite a large chalice.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You focused on the chalices because, Alex, the first few chalices we put in here, they were demolished.
Oh,
and
really?
It wasn't until the fish got bored of having 50 chalices that they just stopped picking on them. And even when I put a new chalice in, we actually see some bite marks for the first day or two, and then they leave it alone, and it regrows over. So chalice is one of those things that, like, I would say is on the border.
Okay, so hit and miss with those, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself because the thing is, I see that tank and I've got a million questions. I want to ask them all at once, but so let's wind back then. So we know a little bit about your history, but how did you get to the point where you thought, I want a big tank, just a normal 10 or 12 foot isn't enough, I want to turn my house into an aquarium, basically?
It took building a couple of normal sized tanks first, and then a divorce, and then a life reset, and let's do it again with a new spouse and a reset, but let's just do it bigger and better. And that's what it took. I would have never have been in this position had the order of events been different.
Right. Okay. So you've got a very supportive wife.
I was very supportive second wife, yeah, and you know, we were basically out of the hobby for several years while the construction of this house was going on, and I was just writing bills with no enjoyment. That's no fun. And we did have a rental house where I set up a 1,000-gallon Reef tank that won a Reef Central Award. Tank of the Month, 2014. But it came down quickly when we moved, and then there was 2014 through 2019 where there was nothing. I rested, and boy, did I need the rest.
Yeah, I bet. So this was you built this house. This was a house you built for yourself on your own plan.
This house we bought in like 2013, and we were the plans were in development in 2012. So we've been here 10 years. The coral, though, is only a year old, basically. So 10 years in this house, and the coral's only a year.
Which is crazy given the growth you're getting already. But
so 6 years to build, construct, and plan. Another couple of years of fish only, and here we are.
Really? Okay. So you must have built your house around, or you must have at least planned this, obviously, when you were building.
Yeah, we used the shell of the house. We demoed almost all the walls. We added extensions for the equipment, and then we actually made sub basements below grade 40, 50 feet below grade. We actually had to take the roof off the house to get the vats in and the sumps. So I was
So
changing the roof anyway, so it was a good time to do it.
okay, so you weren't messing around with this.
Yeah, it
and you
wasn't
said you said for a couple of years you just had fish, and so I've just set up a tank myself. It's 13 gallons, so it's not quite on the same level.
right.
But I'm going through the ugly stage at the moment, just a couple of patches of diatoms. So with there are things that I think just must be a world apart. So how did you get through sort of the cycling and the algae stage and all this? How was it?
I mean, honestly, I look at the videos now that I did during COVID, during that year. I'm embarrassed. I can't believe I was proud of the tank. I actually just did a video of a 2001, 2010 Space Odyssey with the monkey, and in the beginning, and then I went through the construction and the fill the tank, and then there was an ugly stage. And boy, I was proud of the tank back then, and I can't watch the videos now. Okay,
because it was just covered in algae and
it was just brown muck, and I guess you get used to it, but we used to blow the rocks off all the time and just trying to accelerate that. But dry Marco rock, that's what happens. The ugly stage lasted quite a long time in this system. Also, probably because I killed the algae off once when we went hypo and did chloroquine in the display tank. So that sort of started over again, and then it just delayed the whole thing for another 6 months.
Why did you go chloroquine? Did you have a disease outbreak?
Yeah. When we opened the tank in November of 2019, I was hosting the high school reunion. It was my 30th high school reunion, and I had about 100 people over here, and the party planners were just like, you have to get life into this tank. We don't care what. So everything wasn't all quarantined. The quarantine wasn't even ready. So I gathered up some fish, and I knew, Alex, that in 30 days I was going to have a parasite outbreak and a bug. But I levied the tank with no amphius and no inverts, and sure enough, right around day 29, I started to see the scratching, the flashing, and all that stuff. And so we just chloroquine phosphated the whole display tank, and because I knew I could. And then we went hypo for a month, and it just delayed that November opening. In my opinion, the tank really opened again in February.
Okay, I'm actually slightly surprised. I would have thought in that kind of water volume, it's still an enclosed space, so there's the parasites can reproduce. But I would have thought that's the sort of system that the fish are going to be quite relaxed, and if anything,
I don't. When you gather 150, 200 fish in one night and you throw them together, there's bound to be something.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Now with these massive UVs and the ozone in the system now, I don't really need to worry about that much. But back then, sure.
Okay, so and fish health is one of the things I wanted to talk about as well. Actually, do you know what? First, before I come on to that, so you're wearing the Polo Reef t-shirt, and you have a Polo Reef group on Facebook and all this sort of stuff. So that's what's that about? Tell me more about that.
So people ask me about the name Polo first, so let me give you that. I actually live on Polo Drive, and we live across from the Polo Fields, hence the name of the street. So Polo Reef became very easy description. We actually have an LLC basically called that, and so we made this company up to deal with fish tank business. Now, what is fish tank business? It absolutely meant nothing. It was all coming out of my personal stuff. But late this year, we formed this company, and now sort of the goal, it's still morphing, but the goal is to gather subscribers, gather followers, teach and educate the industry, take people along the journey, promote some smiles. If I can help anything to the hobby in terms of technology or remedies, I'd love to do that. give back to marine sciences and schools and have some fun. And where else this goes, I have no idea, Alex. But that's sort of what we decided.
Right, so it's more than just kind of more than a hobby. This is what you've set up. It's your own company, and you've got sort of bigger plans. And you talked about sort of sharing knowledge and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And that's the one thing with your tank that I think is probably very different to most tanks, is that you would have invested a lot, and I don't mean in terms of money, or perhaps of money as well, but you would have invested a lot in sourcing these fish. So effort. Some of the fish you can't just go to your local fish shop and pick up another one, and so I'm guessing you've spent a bit of time thinking about nutrition and keeping the fish healthy. So what's the story with that?
So we think about a lot of things from that to boy, wouldn't it be great if we can collect some eggs somehow and breed? I mean, just this morning. Well, no, that wasn't this morning when I got home. We got home this 11 o'clock. I saw crosshatch triggers breeding in the sand. Like, we have spawning every day here. So that's something I think about. We certainly have the facilities to do it if the right partner came along to help us out with the stews afterwards.
Okay,
and raising the livestock, and then in terms of like what else, fish behavior, Alex, like you mentioned, we play with all sorts of things. Like, I'm convinced I could increase and decrease the fish aggression by increasing and decreasing the ozone and the ORP of the tank. And I think I can change it again with some activated carbon. And I see these things, and I, other than seeing them, it's hard to prove. But certainly there would be a lot of science around it if you could, other than making observations.
So what? Tell us about the observations then, because there's value in that.
Well, I mean, look, it's not too unusual as you increase oxygen or oxidation, right? You get more. You can climb a mountain better, and you can climb, Everest better, but you may get more aggressive. So we have found that raising the ozone and raising the ORP in the tank, the fish get more aggressive with each other, and more fights, more whatever. Certainly they're hungrier. Whether that's good or not is a different question. But yeah, different behavior. Let's say at ORP 300 versus 400.
Really? So, as in more aggressive the higher the ORP or lower?
Yes. And then I have stories about when we treated the tank with hydrogen peroxide during an ick outbreak, and just to let you know that lowers your ORP, even though you think it should raise it, it actually lowers it, which keeps the ozone on actually all day and all night, trying to get it back. And then you're redosing the peroxide, which is another oxidizer. And I've actually lost fish in that process from killing each other as opposed to the disease. I had one Sweet Lips actually beat the hell out of his best friend during that process.
Wow.
So it definitely, and I think we can even reverse some of it by when I change the carbon in the carbon reactor, I feel like it absorbs maybe some of the side effects of the ozone, and the fish get calmer. I can't be sure. I'm not sure how you would prove it, but these are the things we notice.
Alex.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Alex, this is Rashid. Just to chime in really quick, just two points I want to add. We're going to start documenting some of this stuff, right? I mean, one of the things that Andrew first started off with was just having fun with the hobby and the fish, and obviously it was a large endeavor to go through 6 years of actually building this thing. But we're going to start, documenting some of this stuff. I mean, one of the things we recently just, when we got here this morning, is we noticed the ORP went from like 275 to 320. And then, of course, we found out that Jonathan changed out the sulfur, blew out the sulfur.
Blew out the sulfur reactor, which lowers the bacteria count and changed the UV bulbs. Like that makes a big difference. I don't even know. There's not enough people even in the hobby to probably even measure that. But we were able to measure that, and we see a big difference this morning in fish activity, etc.
Yeah, and so just to go back to the second point, that in regards to spawning, we're getting ready to do some pretty cool things with the tank. This isn't all final, but we're working on it. We're going to have some highly professional live stream in the tank, live stream cameras and outside, that are going to be on 24/7, and we're going to figure out how we get that to the public. And we're going to start working with some scientists essentially to try to monitor the coral spawning that I'm sure is going to happen over time here, specifically at certain times of the year or whatever. So some cool things are going to happen Polo Reef going forward.
Yeah. So and we have some interns coming from graduate students and college people to help us document and publish these papers also, exactly. which we really didn't listen, Alex. Before COVID, I never even knew how to take a picture.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm serious. Like, I did this as a goof to make people feel better during COVID with the music and the songs. I didn't even know I was shaking the camera. I didn't know anything.
Yeah. But now you've kind of picked it up and you're doing all right. And so, actually, you talked about the fish spawning. I don't suppose, do any of them, do you ever see babies, or do they just get eaten straight away?
No, it's we see the eggs and the sperm and the cloud of smoke that goes down the drains, right? Or the fish eat after that.
Okay, fair enough. But and you've mentioned coral spawning as well. So does that actually happen at the moment?
I'm not down here every night, late night to see, but if it would, it'd be at night, and it's certain times of years. And some of these guys have information on some of these corals, and they know the exact days it should happen.
Yeah, because we want to work with the Rosses of the world and some of the marine biologists and Jamie Craig to understand what can we do to help encourage that. Do we need to keep it pitch black certain times of the year, and why don't we find a way to do an infrared live stream and make that happen? So I think it's going to get quite interesting here really quick.
So Jamie Craggs is the first person who came to mind when you started talking about that. And
there are a few others now working on the spawning part of the. They think fragging and maricultured coral stuff is great and all, but they think it should start earlier in their lifespan in the spawning stage, which is really just a very difficult, long process before you even see a dot on a rock.
Yeah. So, but in a tank like yours, how would you even go about capturing the gametes? And
I don't
is
know.
that even possible?
Well, with a fish spawn, I know that there are egg collectors that fit in your overflows.
Okay. Oh, right.
Okay. And again, my overflows are sort of bigger in general and flow a lot faster. I don't know whether I would have to customize it or whatever. I wonder if it's the same thing for the coral gametes. I don't know.
Okay, and so you could effectively automatically catch
as they go down the drain. Correct.
And it's because you've got some. So talk about some of the fish you've got in there, because you've got some.
This way, Alex.
Special
The what do you call it? The go under and get it with a scoop and a dip. It's not going to work in this tank.
No. Okay.
No.
So what about some of the highlights of the fish? Are there kind of any favorites or anything particularly special that you've got? Dozens.
I get this question all the time, and my answer is always, well, the politically correct answer is I love all my children the same. See, that's the politically correct. Then if they push me further, I say, look, obviously the rarer the stuff, the more it hurts if you lose it. And then I still go back to I love all my children the same. To me, it's genus and species, and I don't take favorites.
Okay, so going back to the middle option then of the ones that it would hurt the most.
Yes.
What comes in that? So we're not, these aren't favorites, of course, but what falls into that category?
I mean, there are a couple of one of a kinds in here that can't be duplicated or has never been seen. There's one conspic blue line hybrid angel that was a fluke accident in a test tube baby, basically at Polo Labs, and they've been unable to duplicate it. And these are two fish that would not meet in the wild.
Hey, Alex, why don't you? I'm going to share my screen so that people can see it.
Do you see that fish somewhere? There you go.
Yeah, I've got him.
You see it? That's now. It's interesting because I have his brothers and sisters in the tank also as just the conspics, and the conspics they're smaller than him. But blue lines are not known to be big fish, so it's just strange how this one turned out to be the biggest and probably the most aggressive of that whole sibling.
Oh, really? And it's Scarus Koi. Yeah. So I mean,
and then there's where's the Picasso tang?
I'll bring you guys a Picasso in a second.
I mean, right there. This one was the first one that was caught in Maldives. It's basically a Desjardins sailfin, but aberrant, and no one's sort of seen the pattern like this before.
But he has a special story, if you want to share that.
The story where we almost lost him, he got a bacterial infection in quarantine in the back, and everybody was pulling for him. We were giving him Cipro baths and injections, and he pulled through.
Right, okay. Because he looks a little bit like you've got another kind of koi-looking tang that looks like kind of a yellow tang, but with similar patterns, and he kind of looks like
so the yellows and whites that were in this big display tank, I bought as Hawaiian white peabalds that actually turned yellow again and have then turned back partially white.
Oh, really? So they've changed color in your tank?
They will, and even though they tell you that the Indonesian ones don't change color, they do. I've had white and black ones that turn all white. I've heard them all lose the black. I've had them regain the black back. If I told you what I thought was the color, the stress factor, or the factor that changed the colors, I don't even want to get into it because I'd be hypothesizing. But I believe it's stress, carbon, that kind of thing.
Okay, because there's Worldwide Corals has a white tang that's Casper, and I think
Casper.
he starts to show.
I had a white and black one that was half white, half black, and actually invertically, and actually went all white. It lost all its black.
Because I think Casper starts to show different. He does the same. He changes.
Yeah,
but it's interesting. So, so you don't think that's down to nutrition? Or is it?
It's something, and you don't know what it is, and it's the reason why, Alex. You've seen a lot of these new hybrid koi-looking Dalmatian tangs being caught at aberrant. They look like freaks, really. I think they're on-shoulder hybrids or something, and they're spotted or they're black and white. But in any event, the days of which we're collecting rare fish that are just color morphs, those days are ending for me because I've realized that they change back, and there's no guarantee that the rarity of the color is going to stay.
Right. Okay. So, which is very much like corals. You can buy an SPS frag and change the lights.
And we've been faked out plenty of times with corals, with triple stacked yellow and orange lenses, and some photoshopping too by some coral sellers.
Yeah. It's a shame, isn't it? But I'm just for 2 seconds, we've got Chelly or Kelly Carter Flores. Thank you very much for the super chat, and she says hit the like button. Okay, so you've got where do you go about sourcing your corals from? And have you got kind of a plan, or is it just kind of throw in as many as you can?
So we had a plan in this tank particular, where we wanted to keep a large chunk of the tank, 70, 80, 90% of the tank, basically tank breakdown, larger colonies that came from fish tanks, not from the wild. And that's hard to do anyway, and ship colonies like this from the wild. They break and nobody's going to ship it. Most of the corals were brought here by car, by guys that went and did local, not even local, even different states, and drove the corals up here. And I paid for the whole breakdown and in one shot. So we did a lot of that. And you'd be surprised, Alex, how many breakdowns there were. What we got in the breakdowns were unbelievable. I asked a lot of people, like, why are you getting out of the hobby? Why are you breaking it down? And most of it was, no, I'm just going for a new named fancy little stick, and I want this name. So the whole, whatever that nonsense is of the marketing and the names and the price, that all benefited us really well because people got rid of their large stuff to make room.
Right. Okay. Because they want to.
And then other people show me stuff, and stuff comes about, and and so that's how we went away about this tank. The other tanks in the house where there's reef safe fish, and we're not gonna we're gonna go after stuff, and we've already done so with Top Shelf and Worldwide, and they're growing me some frags now. And we'll go after some higher end things because in that tank, the 2500 in my office, they will be only reef safe fish, and you'll be able to see and stare at coral polyps and all that great stuff.
Okay. And in terms of, we'll talk about the system a little bit then, because
Sure.
this, I can't get my head around how you even, because you feed a lot. I've seen you dangling an enormous pipe covered in seaweed. And throwing in pounds and pounds of food. So how do you manage nitrate and phosphate in your tank?
Basically we've been we started playing around. Let me just get with the nitrate first. We started playing around with sulfur reactors in my prior tank before I moved and broke it down. And we started to get comfortable with running sulfur reactors. And in my view, there was that way or this a massive algae turf scrubber thing, and the size of the reactor and the amount of algae you'd be pulling out of it was so gross and big. There weren't a lot of the choices, really. So we went with 2 sulfur reactors built by somebody who I won't mention. They worked quite well, but we wanted to even feed more water through the system to get the nitrate down again. And we went to MRC, and they built us this monster. And this monster has only been in operation. It's only been about 6 months now, Alex. And, you start these sulfur reactors very slow. You got to see them. They don't do much at first. And then what happens is the ORP starts to plunge, and you try to push it a little bit at a time. And as you push it and you make more flow, you get some nitrate. You get nitrite coming out of it, which means you got to back off. And you just keep finding this process, and you're growing, denitrifying bacteria in the sulfur reactor. Too slow, and you have hydrogen sulfide. Too fast, and you kill your bacteria. That's basically those. Okay. Those are your 2 scenarios. Everything else in the middle is fine. But this one, we kept raising and raising and raising, and it wanted to gallop and gallop and gallop. And we were looking for the spot where maybe we'd get some nitrate coming out of the reactor. So because we were stripping the tank down, and we couldn't find the spot. We could not find it. It took everything we gave it. So, and the pH was going down in the system because that water tends to have a lower pH from the sulfuric acid.
Okay.
So we went the other way. We backed off, and we found a spot where we liked the pH is 8.2. The nitrate stays at, it goes down to 4 or 5 if I don't add nitrate now. So we're adding about 1,000 milliliters of ESV nitrate a day.
Okay.
A day. So I went from having a problem to adding nitrate. That's one thing. The second thing is we have giant tower of phosphate of GFO. And when I say giant, I mean it takes two men almost a full day to empty it, clean it, refill it, and then rinse it. So we empty about 15 buckets of Roaphos into one reactor.
Okay.
In terms of the 5-gallon buckets, I think it's like 3 or 4 of the BRS high capacity 5-gallon buckets. And it takes a long time to rinse a lot of GFO like that. So they'll let that rinse in RO water or system water right down the drain. We'll let it rinse out for like half a day, and we'll just use it as a water change.
Okay.
And then just hook it up.
So you cut, because there probably aren't many people who run a sulfur reactor. I've never come across one
for
before.
The nitrate, GFO, huge GFO tower for the phosphate. We have used lithium chloride when we needed to. I don't like to do it. We have a process downstairs where it literally goes from one 5-micron sock into another 5-micron sock into 3 5-micron socks before it reaches the sump. But it's a slow process, and I still don't like to use it if I have to.
What is that? Because lanthanum's going to build up and harm your corals? Why don't you not use it?
If you're not careful, even if you do it through one 5-micron sock, no matter what happens, the tank clouds up a little bit. You get a little white haze. The more white haze, the more dangerous. So I just prefer not to have any haze in the tank.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good enough reason. So I've used lanthanum before on a much smaller scale, of course, but it always makes me twitchy because you start to see it build up on ICP tests, and I think, well, it's probably not a good thing to have elevated.
I've seen some tanks also flip and drop dead if it's not diluted well.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Talking about the fun fact, Andrew, that we have a huge calcium reactor that's barely been used.
Oh, here's another fun fact for you guys. People say, well, what are you doing for dosing alkalinity, calcium, and all those things, right? So it turns out that the sulfur reactor has an aragonite chamber.
Okay.
To boost the pH afterwards. And it goes through the aragonite chamber. And apparently it's melting that aragonite gravel, and that's actually acting as my calcium reactor, because my calcium reactor has been set at 7.2. We have not needed it to go below 7 yet.
Okay.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but it's doing the job, but not how you were expecting it to.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So do you dose anything, or is it just this aragonite media?
It's we run 50 gallons of cork water through the day, which is the evaporation of the tank. So that's going throughout the day now. We have about 2,000 to 3,000 milliliters of the bionic alkalinity component only, part 1. That goes every hour. I think it pumps out like 125 mils. The calcium reactor, which is not below 7, it's just blowing at 7.2, and the sulfur reactor, which has that aragonite chamber, which we think is melting, because the pH of that water is below 7 coming out.
Okay. And actually, so there's in the comments, there's Brian Schaff, who's the CEO of Tropic Marine Centre, the Europe's largest importer of fish and corals. I don't know what their system's like, but in terms of volume, but it's big, and they used to use sulfur reactors. Well, there we go, 20,000 liters, and they were tricky.
They are very efficient and very effective, but they clog and they need to. We blow. MRC made us a blow, which is basically a huge couple of bubbles that dislodge all the mum and bacteria, and so it doesn't clog, and you could readjust the ORP. You can actually lower the bacteria count, and we just shove that water down the drain while we do that. We blow it every, I don't know, once a quarter. We blow it, and it makes a big difference.
And it smells wonderful.
And it smells wonderful while we do that.
Well, speaking of smelling wonderful, I think I've seen on one of the video tours like a 30-foot tall skimmer. You've got skimmers, right?
2 MRC, massive ones, yeah. One that runs ozone, one does not. Hold on, Rashid's going to get you a picture of them.
Okay.
That's the back of the tank. Rashid there?
Yep, I'm going to share in 1 second.
There's also, whilst we're waiting for that, a few people are asking about peppermint angels. Have you ever had a peppermint angel?
I've had 3. I've had 4, maybe 4 or 5. Total peppermint angels. I kept them all alive between 7, 8 years. One died sort of early. Every one that we autopsied, and we autopsied 3 of them, all had internal flora gut like nematodes. And so the key from now on, if someone brings those in, we're going to need to internally deworm them. And the problem is that those things are the worst eaters in the world, and like wouldn't take food or anything other than baby brine for a long time. So getting them to eat medicated food will be no easy task.
Right. Okay. So very, very difficult. And I think we now have
here are the skimmers.
These are the skimmers. That's a brute trash can.
Yeah, these are twin. Actually, the one on the left, the picture on the left or right, whatever you're looking at it, that's the sulfur reactor. And the other one is the skimmer, and then there's another one behind that. So we have twin skimmers, probably overbuilt. In fact, that one that you're looking at right now, that one does about a third of the job of the one behind it, because the one behind it has the ozone on it too, and it just works better.
Well, I'm just even looking at the size of the pipes you've got. They're 18 inches wide, 2 feet wide, those pipes.
Yeah,
and what's that for? Is that
9-10 inch PVC?
Okay.
The pictures.
Yeah.
So this picture, that's the sub basement. That's where we had to build underneath, and that's where all the sumps are, all the engines, and you could see there how we designed a fiberglass thing on top. We can walk underneath. We keep the floor clean with drains, and all the engines are above us on that fiberglass servicing thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4 systems in this room, really. One for my office, one for the big system, one for the Peppermint Angel and rare deep water cube system, and then really a water distribution system for all those tanks with those huge vats.
Okay, it looks like you've got some computer control going on there.
Yeah, we hired an industrial plant specialist that does water systems in plants. And he actually said this code has significantly more code than his water plants. So just don't drink that water so fast.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's a lot of automation. It's a PLC that basically monitors everything, sends us, besides alerts and texts, the redundancy is unbelievable. We can run this tank with water, with just 5 inches of water. God forbid if a tragedy or a leak happened, we can run this tank with fish, with the sand filter and the chiller and all those things. So we built the tank just like that. Flow slows down from one pump, it automatically shifts to another pump, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Okay. And so, I mean, just the scale of this is off the charts, and this must take. This isn't something that you can sort of maintain on your own. So you must have a team of people who do this.
Yeah, I would say like before there was coral and it was just a fish system. I was able to do this with, let's say, myself and one other full-time person, and then maybe a service with help 1 or twice a week. We are now up to, I believe, 4 full-time people here, and still a team that comes twice a week to help.
Okay. So
the coral has just made it's just been a dramatic undertaking.
Yeah,
which we expected. We expected it. So,
is this a sump we're looking at here?
That's the sump to the big system. Along, you can see all the micro bubbles that come down. You're talking about 1,300 gallons per minute flowing through this sump. So it's all like 75,000 gallons an hour, and it even creates a foam head like a skimmer, you know. So we dam it. We dam it with carbon. You can see carbon in those crates. We dam it with live rock in with holes in it in a brute bucket, and so the micro bubbles calm down by the time it hits the main display.
Okay, and what about flow then? Because how does flow work in this? I can't even get my head around it.
The flow is let me just go through the diagram. Do you have the diagram on the computer somewhere?
Yeah, I can pull it up for you. 1 second. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I mean this is the closest we're gonna get to. Andrew,
do you have a close shot or no? Not a big deal.
Here.
Okay.
Here it is. I'll get it. There you go.
Okay.
It's close enough.
So let's just start with the sump. The sump, it goes from the sump. Well, let's go from the tank. The tank, it drains down. It drains down to the sump. As it does that, all the water, most of the water, 700 gallons per minute, go through the UV, and then the sump, and then about 300 to 400 gallons of the water goes through the sand filter, and then once in a loop, and then it once goes back, and the sand filter goes through chillers, and they both go through chillers. We really only needed 1 or 2 chillers. We break it up into 5 just so there's redundancy in case one of the condensers breaks outside and so forth. But so from the sump, it goes back into the main system, or it goes through the skimmers again, and it just keeps going on loops. And then you can see that the reactors are doing the same thing. So how many engines do we have here? I'm just looking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's 2 in the back. 6, 7. There's 7 engines. Some of that is reverse. Is the closed loop, but they're basically 7 of those pumps are or 6 of those 7 are 10 horsepowers. There's 5 horsepower pump. And that's what's creating the 1,300 gallon per minute total flow. And then we have a hydro wizard in the tank, which is one of those Panta Ray monsters.
Yeah.
It's capable of 50,000 gallons per hour. We're running at about half speed. And we will be adding more of that type of stuff in the future. We'll probably have to have it robotic arm, so it comes down and actually blows on the reef from the front glass and then retracts, because putting more power heads in the back, it doesn't do anything for the reef itself anymore.
Right. So, but you do have, it's not just a closed loop. You do have actual power heads.
There's one. Yeah, you got a picture of it in the center, Rashid?
The hydro?
The hydro wizard.
We don't have the hydro.
You don't have a picture?
I was going to go to lighting next, and once you guys are done with this.
Yeah, so there's a massive hydro wizard there.
It's right below this,
and it creates way big waves. You know, it moves a lot of water. Let's put it this way: when the divers go in to dive, we have to shut that thing off.
Yeah.
Okay.
They get blown around a little bit.
So that actually, that whilst we'll come on to lighting in just a second, I can see the pictures there, and it's crazy to see. But in terms of the one of the other things one of the other first things I thought about when I saw that tank is getting in there, and I have a tank that's grown out, and the corals grow so fast that it's actually a problem. But I can just reach in and snap a bit off. How is that? How do you deal with that challenge in that tank?
Well, let's put it this way. The percentage of dives happening with females and smaller people are increasing versus big people. Okay? It's getting tight. And unless you know your way around and you're hopping around light, you can really break some corals and do some damage.
Yeah. So that
Rashid goes in there, and like we already have some epoxy marks on the inside of the acrylic from like just rubbing up against the thing. Like we're gonna need to buff the acrylic out. It's just stuff like that starts to happen.
Okay. And do you? So I presume you don't just free dive. Do you have people dangling on chains or something to?
Oh
to
yeah,
stop
there's a hose with tanks on the outside.
Okay.
And we go through.
All right.
Somebody's diving in this tank. It used to be once every month, and then it used to be once every 2 weeks, and now it's at least once a week. And what we have to do is something falls on the sand and it's turned over, or a piece of coral breaks off because a parrotfish, broke the bond of the epoxy, or something like that happens. They fall. We have a pole with a hook that we're pretty good with. We can actually flip the corals over. We can get them so that at least they're not in the sand, and pick them up and put them somewhere, or leave them in the sand but upright until the next dive.
Okay. And actually, on that point, then,
that's basically what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. But you've worked a system out for it,
right?
Alex, we envision later down the line, obviously, corals, people have to remember, we've only had corals for like a little over a year here. Okay. Mm-hmm. So these corals really haven't had a chance to really kick in and just absolutely flourish. But we envision like stocking up some of the 900-gallon drop down tank and our 2,500-gallon with some of these corals, but mainly, we'll be creating frags that we're going to do on our giveaways. We have a plan for some of the growth. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I get you. Got to think of that. And what about in terms of cleanup crew? Then, do you have like football-sized snails, and what do you do for that?
So we have football-sized snails, but believe it or not, the snails in this tank, we think they get picked off by the butterflies and the angels, or if they fall off, those guys go after them. So we're always cleaning up dead snail trail in the sand. But the real cleanup crew, there's probably 1,000 urchins in here.
Yeah. Okay. So the long spine urchins, the
both the this, I don't know if there's really long ones. They're the Halloweens and the black pincushion mostly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And we had, it's 300, 400 a time, and they do a lot of work. And the only thing we have to worry about is the bulldozer, but most of the stuff is so epoxied now that in this tank we don't worry about it.
Yeah, okay. So my tuxedo urchin will spawn and just start smoking every now and then. Do you get that? Do you get?
Yeah, we get them smoking.
Yeah. Okay.
We get it. It actually lowers the ORP when they do that. Like, it's interesting.
Okay. And so let's talk about lighting then. We'll get. I think we'll get the picture up of these lights. So this is here we go. Let's bring this up now. So these are your lights. What's going on here?
This has changed quite a bit in terms of what we thought we were going to use, but basically there are massive 1,000 watters in the front of the tank that are square, which you can barely see. But if you look at the most front of the picture, you will see the lights on, and those are 1,000-watt, massive frosted glass. They have probably the biggest punch, and they get the middle part of the reef. We keep the whites on, and those things only about 17, 18%. The back row that you see there, the 100% back row, we took all the whites off. We're running only blues on those whites on the back row.
Okay.
It was just too much par. And then you'll see a bunch of lights on angles. You see the angle ones?
Yep.
That's majority of the stuff hitting the back of the reef. And because they're on angles, and because they're 20K chipsets, and because they're far away from the reef, we're able to run those 30, 35% on the white channel, the rest 100% blue. And then you'll see a couple of select down channels, just straight down. And those we have to be careful of, because where the down meets and intersects with the other lights, we get extremely high par and crossover. So in those downs also, we have taken off the whites, and we're just running them blue. The straight
And
down.
So you've obviously measured par. What kind of par?
Oh, we have charts. We have, yeah, okay. I'll show you guys. I'd love to see a picture of me here doing this.
Yeah.
Can you see these? Can you see this?
Yeah. 1 second.
These are pictures of our dives where we measure the par with digital photo.
Yep.
And record what we're doing, blue only, different when we go down. And I'm writing numbers down, scratching numbers out. I don't know whether you see actually, there's no numbers on. These don't have the numbers.
Okay.
But we have pages with numbers. Trust me. You see numbers here? Oh yeah, this is the blue only par. Okay. Blue only, no whites. You get the picture. And that ranges from 270, 300, 280, 200, 180, 160, 190, 200. So 185, 150. So if we wanted to run this tank blue only with not a single white, I think the corals would be fine.
Okay, I'm going to try different. There we go. That's exactly what I'm after. So now we can see your tank a bit better as well. So, so what's that? In fact, I can see there's an angel behind you, the pure white angel with the black face. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, that's a Personatus masked angel.
Personatus.
Yeah,
yes.
those are from Hawaii, and that's one of my prize fish. That not so easy to get.
No, they're stunning. You don't.
We have five. No, I got 5 in here and 4 upstairs. We got 9 of them in the house.
Okay, and with that much, there's a question about that much blue light. If you put the orange glasses on, do your eyes bleed?
The truth of the matter is, the blue, sometimes it bothers you to the point where we want to light up the back of the tank with some of those downs with some white just for an hour or two to shoot some video kind of thing.
Yep.
But every time we do it, we think like 5 days later, the coral looks worse. The corals just do better in blue. The coral farmers know it. You got a Top Shelf, you got a Worldwide. I don't even know if they use the white channel. They don't use the red and green. It's literally all blue. I get it. Maybe it doesn't grow as fast, but the corals definitely are less stressed. So the way we like to do it is you get 90% of your par, 85% of your par with the blues, and add some whites for some visual appeal, but you really don't need it for the last 15%. The last 15%.
Okay. And we've got some more people in the house. Danny's Aquarium, fellow YouTuber. Evening, Danny. Welcome along. So we've talked about nitrate and phosphate and alkalinity and calcium. And you mentioned pH earlier. You run pH at 8.2. How do you manage that?
I think it's the Kalkwasser.
Right, because 50 gallons of calc a day.
Yeah. Now we made a change there also recently. We used to gravity feed it down to the sub basement,
Yep. Okay.
and we'd open up the valve at 7 o'clock at night, and we would think it would be gone by, let's say, midnight, 1 a.m. So it was only getting chunks of the night, and during that night, we would shut off the those hours. We'd actually would take off the alkalinity, be ionic, and what we started to notice was a slight pH variance and alkalinity bumps intraday. So now we got one of these industrial dosing pumps where I can run 100 gallons a day. There you go. There it is. There's the picture. So that's now running my cork washer on a 24-hour basis. And we think that was 0.2 increase in pH just from that.
Really? So I can't see that, Rashid. Can you pull that up on the screen so I can share it?
Right now. There you go.
Here we go. Okay. There we go. Oh, wow.
Yeah. It just
So
does
that's
a
a
lot.
dosing
It
pump.
just
Yeah,
does a lot more
very
than
helpful.
Apex or something. It does, a couple 100 gallons a day.
Yeah, I couldn't work out what that was, and now I can see it's just a massive peristaltic pump.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's industrial. Everything has to be commercial industrial for it to work.
So that's helped. Offset a lot of the sulfur reactor depression in pH.
Okay, and so do you find what's your view on pH? Because it seems that there's a lot more emphasis on that at the moment. Do you think it's so as important as everyone makes out, or?
I used to never chase pH numbers, but I think of all the science out there with the trace elements and whether I'm sorry, Andre, whether selenium or fluoride or fluorine or cobalt does anything. And we think it does. And keeping trace elements stable is really important. And I'm a moonshiner guy. We're sending in trace elements once a week. But I think the real science on increase in pH is good for the coral and growth rates and skeleton. And so I think if you took the same conditions, identical, at 8.0 and it was 8.2 and they were identical, I think the 8.2 tank's doing better than the 8.0 tank.
Yeah.
That's all things considered.
Yeah, I don't think you get much argument on that. And from science to a logistical thing,
and some people want to do it by increasing the boron levels above naturals. Everyone's got a different way of doing it, and I'm cool every way. But I think at the end of the day, it's about basically stability and stability in a lot of those minor and trace elements. Okay. I don't know if it matters whether you're at 1 part per billion or a half a part per billion, but I know it matters whether it's not there at all, and whether it's flying around.
Okay, and do you have, because in terms of CO2 buildup, do you have sort of ventilation in the fish room, or how do you deal with that?
It's CO2 or dehumidification.
CO2, yeah, CO2.
No, we have nothing special going on in CO2. A lot of air conditioning and stuff like that, and no, nothing special. I don't think we get particularly. I just don't think we get a lot of oxygen down in the sub basement.
Okay, but you mentioned humidity. So you're in Florida, right?
We're in New York.
New York, sorry, right? Okay.
This tank would not be able to be built in Florida because there's no basements in Florida. It's one of the things that keeps me from retiring in Florida so early, is basements.
Okay, so this is low down then, is it? And actually, it's sunk into the floor a little bit, right?
Yeah. So the tank is 2 feet under, and then that engine room I showed you. At the lowest point of that engine room, you're 40 feet below grade because of the sump.
Wow. So that's what does the cooling, just being so low down.
That room is interesting enough. when we designed that room, we had a choice of whether we wanted to heat. And by the way, I'm giving this presentation at MACNA, all the things you didn't think of building a big tank and you need to know. But, you know, you have a sub basement and it's winter time and you're in New York. It gets cold down there. Do you do something and heat the room, or do you heat the water, which heats the room? And we had to have engineers to look at that. And really what we chose was to heat the water because we thought being able to heat 10,000 gallons of RO water from 60 to 80 in 30 minutes was more important, just in case.
You can heat it to that
You
much
heard me.
temperature.
You heard me. Yes.
Yeah. How would you do that?
10,000 gallons of RO from 60 to 80 in an hour.
Okay.
1.3 million BTU of natural gas boilers do that.
Wow. Okay. And that's for water changes. You do water changes?
Correct.
Okay. Very interesting.
And that the temperature is, mid 70s down there with the water. It's reasonably comfortably in the sub basement. Maybe it's mid 60s, 72. So it worked. Heating the water was the right call.
And presumably with that size volume of water, the temperature stays relatively stable.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. What else was I going to ask you about? So some of the differences between, because I've not seen much equipment that I would expect to see in a normal tank, but things like, but you've mentioned Rowaphos, so that's one of the things you use. So
yeah, so let me just tell you some of the things we can't do the same way and have to do differently, and some of the ones we do the same. Like I told you, the GFO reactor and the carbon reactor I run is the same stuff that you guys run. They're just massive.
Okay.
Okay. The sulfur reactor, I would not put a sulfur reactor on a small system. I think you could really do some damage. So I think they work better in big systems like this. That's a pretty advanced piece of equipment that I wouldn't just run silly-nilly without experience. And then it's the mechanical. Believe it or not, it's the mechanical filtration that's different in a tank like this that we can't do the same way as the hobbyist. And let me just give you some examples. You ever try to have some filter socks running at 1,300 gallons a minute, and they crash right down into the sump? They cannot hold up to the water pressure. And how many you would need? It would fill up and they just go right into the sump. There's nothing that would hold it. It would clog up and so forth. So we knew filter socks, no way. What we went for was a standard pool filter that does the sump in a pleated cartridge format, 4 pleated cartridges that we can run diatomaceous earth in if we want to. And it's just on a loop on the sump. So just clean the sump all the time. And we change those pleated cartridges every 4 days, and they're filthy.
Right.
We had to go with ozone. We originally weren't sure, but when you look through so much water, clarifying that water is so important that the ozone really makes a big difference.
So even 4 feet of water in my tank, if I look end on, it's not cloudy, but the clarity isn't there. Do you get the clarity in your tank with all the ozone?
A third goes through the sand filter, which is they say it's sand filter, but it's not sand in there. It's plastic. It's glass inert media that needs to be backwashed once a week, like a pool filter. Right. It collects dirt, but it does a good job. It's just a third. A third is going that way. A third is going through the skimmers, and the rest is a pool filter on a loop and the ozone. And the things that we would talk about were things like giant rotary drum filters. I don't know whether you guys know what that is. They use them in koi ponds. They're actually things that spin, but it's not a wheel. It's a wheel, but it's a mesh wheel that gets cleaned with RO all the time.
Okay, I think I've got a picture of a rotary drum filter. That
Rotary drum filter, but the problem with those, we would have had to build them custom with fiberglass because of the rust. But we finally found someone to do that for us in the 2500, and we're thinking about doing that and to see how that works. And we may institute it in the big tank if we're happy with it.
Okay, is it? Can you see that on the screen? Is it something like that?
Let me see. Biotech. Yes, that's what it looks like. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, a big wheel. Yep.
Okay, and just one of the other things that as I'm looking at the tank there, you've obviously got a sand bed. How do you keep that clean? Is that someone going in and
somebody going in and fluffing it up all the time? And there's a lot of gobies in there, a lot of sand gobies and Nacerius snails underneath. And when we think about long-term projects on the drawing board, we still think about pulling up and siphoning out 1/3 of the sand bed and replacing it every year and a half or so. And so it's time for the first 1/3 to get done. And we've been thinking about which pump we need and not grinding it and how much water we're going to take out at the same time. And whether, these are the things that you think about. And I don't know if vacuuming the sand would work. We may have to just pull it out at section by time and lay new bags in. We're not sure.
Okay, but so you must get a serious buildup of detritus, even with all the sifted gobies and all that.
It's not so bad. There's a closed loop in there. We must have 150 Watchmen, Bella gobies, and things on the sand. And there's a lot of grazing on the sand. So we don't think the sand's that bad.
Okay. Well, look, I mean, it looks good, to be fair. But
I mean, yeah, it's maintained by the fish.
Hey, Alex, sorry to interrupt. So it looks like we got close to 200 people watching right now. It's pretty good. I only see about 70 likes, though. So if you guys are enjoying this information, please press that like button so more people can see it. We just want to make sure we address people's questions live if possible, which I've been marking down a few that I think we'll address later on. But yeah, please press that like, guys.
Thank you. And so actually, you said you've been noting down some questions. I have seen a couple flash up, but I'm always terrible at keeping track of them. So have you kind of got any questions that you see?
I'll go through a couple that we maybe have not addressed before. Let's see. So we have LG Auto Cravings. Andrew, have you ever thought of a smaller shark species, perhaps, or would you be able to, if you can eat the buffet? So have you ever thought about a shark essentially in a tank?
I get this question all the time, and at the end of the day, I think you got to choose between the coral and the sharks because they knock things down. It would just make things way too fast, knocking things down. Your smaller amphibians you worry about, and also nutrients and all those other things.
All right. Along those lines, John Wright had a good question. He said he's wondering if you get the same enjoyment from some of your smaller tanks as the main display.
Yeah, we do, and we're making those smaller tanks bigger tanks, so I'm going to get more enjoyment. I mean, Rashid actually mentioned it and dropped the bomb a little bit, but we haven't told anybody this 200-gallon cube that's with the Abai Angels and this beautiful tank here to the right that will be taken down very shortly. We just ordered a 900-gallon drop-down tank to replace it.
Oh, really?
And one other thing.
And there's a new jellyfish tank in the work in one at Caddy Corner by RAD, and they have a build starting. So we consolidated quite a bit in anticipation of this. We have this pond going on, Polo Pond, which just opened up freshwater, and I'm about to get koi in there if we can ever figure out the stray electricity that's that's zapping people around the property. But so yeah, there's a lot of exciting things going on, Alex, as well as speeches and interns and making this thing whatever it's going to turn into. We're trying.
So you talked about speeches. You said you're doing MACNA. So is it? What are you talking about? Kind of the logistical challenges. You said it was things that you wouldn't think are a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
So the speech originally was design, construction, operating an industrial sized reef tank.
Okay.
But it's been actually done before, that speech, and I thought that at least we should highlight the things that you would be shocked about or you never thought of while planning a reef tank like this. And so we're taking a little different angle, like the amount of amp service you need from the electrical utility, and just the type of power you need, just the permits you need to close the bridges and roads to get the tank to your house and bury the cesspools. So it's just a little bit more of a jaw dropper kind of. I didn't think about that speech. Then I got big stuff.
Yeah. I wouldn't have even given any consideration to needing permits and that you have to shut down bridges and roads to get things in.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
King Reef Tank mentioned, do we have any UV? How many UVs are we running?
We just changed the UV bulbs yesterday.
Yep.
The tank looks exceptionally clear today because of it. We have a William Lim 10 bulb, 375 watt each bulb. So we have just under 4,000 watts. I believe 350,000 microjoules per square centimeter. It's enough to kill ick and parasites. We have one bulb that we're having problems with. It's not even the bulb, it's the sleeve. It bent, so forth. So we've been running the UV sterilizer with 9 bulbs. And because of the ick outbreak we had and the constant little stupid things that show up because of that, since we have now changing the bulbs every 6 months, and we got new bulbs yesterday.
Okay, so you said basically just under 4,000 watts. For reference, on my 150 litre tank, 40 gallon, I had an 11 watt UV. So little bit more. And we've got a question about that. So is that? Well,
just remember, we're running 700 gallons per minute through it.
Yeah. Okay, so quick, a lot of flow.
And all right, girl. I'm talking. Hey, let him out. Hold on, my dog's heard something.
And do you run that? Cause you said the water was much clearer today. Do you do that for algae control then, or
no? We walked in the house and it was immediately noticeable.
Right. Okay.
From the UV bulb change immediately.
And this is the first time you've changed after 6 months, or was that a year old your last set?
No, I did it after a year, but this is the first time I did it after 6. Correct.
Okay, right. So I mean, water clarity is it makes a massive difference. So that's worth doing then.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the difference.
The best clarity is when you go in, though. I keep telling Andrew that, so we're gonna get him to dive one day.
Yeah, I got to get in the tank in there and have some fun.
Have you not been in?
You know, I've had the artistic design from outside the tank and the laser pointers and go do this angle and go do this angle. And while I'm doing that, I'm trading stocks. And so I really don't like to go in an hour or two, by the way, if the markets are open and like be out of commission. So it's just been about that.
Okay, fair enough. I'd be worried about treading on things. But yeah, okay. So Rashid, were there more questions that you?
One consistent one. We'll consolidate this one from Doghouse Reefer.
Yeah.
And Ashton 626 was regarding Mrs. Sandler, what's her feelings about you and this hobby?
Well, you spend time with her,
Yeah,
Rashid.
I mean,
So she's very supportive, and she thinks I'm nuts. She thinks the things I do is nuts, and the speed and the fish I bring in, and the rarity stuff. She's she's in the. My favorite fish is the sweet lips, and my favorite coral is the pink stylo, the purple stylo. Like it doesn't register to her the rarity stuff, so she thinks that's stupid. With the exception of that, she just wants my life to be balanced. She wants to be able to go on vacation, and she wants to not make it this 100 cents on the dollar time. And I'm up to about 80, and it's probably gotten to the upper threshold now. But other than that, she's been incredibly supportive, and she knew that I wasn't finished building my dream when I met her, and I had to continue with this thing, and that was part of what we built together.
Yeah. Okay.
I get a sense that she just wants to make sure Andrew's having fun doing this and not
having fun and being safe are the two sort of things. She worries about the posts and being too public and showing too much of the house, blah blah blah. A little bit of that, but yeah, when she sees my stress level go up, and my stress level's up because the markets are difficult, because I'm taking care of all these tanks and a staff now, and a social media business, and the downtime is nil. That's it.
Okay.
So she wants to make sure I do it for fun and never let the fun go away, which is what I'm drilling home to myself.
So I'm hearing a lot of what I experience as well. Pretty much everything you've said, obviously at a different scale, but resonates with me and
and
my fiance. So.
Right. Yeah. It's a YouTube, it's a business. Yeah, sure.
Okay, and so she's obviously very supportive, and you talked about kind of downtime. So does this absorb all your time? In a good way, in enjoying it.
I go upstairs by 6. It used to be 4:35. I used to make myself, and let's say now by 6:30, I have dinner. I don't come down here again unless I come and I see something on the computer upstairs, or I just want to check the moonlight. Like I'm upstairs with her. The fish tank is done. Me and it by 7 p.m. That's it. We're done. I'll see you at 8 in the morning the next morning.
Okay, good. So and what's the plan long term for this? Because it's part of the structure of the house. So is this going to be here for 10 years, for 20 years, or?
I wish I knew the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I hope it is. I hope we would never sell this house, and I don't know there'd be a buyer of this house unless they wanted maybe a big cage for some silverback gorillas or terrarium. They'd have to cut a lot of PVC though. Either way, like if I moved to Florida at first, it'd only be a few months at a time. It would be so gradual that I think I would keep this going for a very long time.
Yeah, okay. And there's comments, people saying that they'd love to see it in 20 years' time.
Yeah, I hope it's 20 years. Let's say if it's 75. I mean, I would love to sign a piece of paper that I'm alive too. At that point.
Okay. I mean, even 20 years is one thing, but even the growth that you're going to get, even in 2 years, it's going to look insane. And how do you must have you kind of thought about when things grow out, how that changes lighting and flow and all those things?
Yeah, the flow is the one we're worried about. Because the lighting, I mean, I told you I could crank this thing up more, okay, and have crazy par. And then there's no spots that I'm not getting, so it's the flow. And the two theories on the flow would be, there's actually a few interesting theories. I don't know whether you can you, Rashid, can you show him the two big cannons in the back, the surge valves.
Okay, sure.
We have these surge valves in the back,
Mm.
Let me see.
which go on auto. They're on timers. They rotate. They're the largest PVC pipe in there, and they actually blow the back of the reef.
Yeah, I got this a top shot.
Yeah, that's the top shot of it.
hold
But
on, 1
okay.
second.
I think I can see it above your head. Is
Yes,
that
you
it right at
could
the top?
see it above my head. So those surge valves take water from other parts of the system when they're on and reduce it, and then more water just comes out that way.
Okay.
One thing would be to get a separate dedicated pump for those things and really let the water come down the back of the reef stronger, which we could do. The other way we're thinking about is, again, a robotic arm that basically comes down from one of the front corners of the tank in the front, retracts when you don't want to see it. Maybe it goes down twice during the day, and you're just blowing detritus.
Mm.
And then it just comes back up. And so it's more of a real blow, making sure detritus doesn't settle on the tank and on the coral.
Okay. And in terms of fish, then, are you done with fish? There's no more to go in. Do you have space or?
There's always room. We have a school of some chromis in the back. I got a school of Bartlett Anthias in the back. We have some clownfish that are that need to go in, but we have some anemones I need to put them with, and that dive. Putting anemones in this tank with the large angels and butterflies is very challenging. You basically have to get the clowns in there first, hosting, and then put a cage over one of those crab cages over the anemone, so that the big scribbled angels and emperor angels don't carry the carpets off in their mouth, which they do. We've tried this before. So there are fish in the back left. I wanted to do it strategically, thoughtfully, and I wanted this UV bulb changed before I put any new fish in. That's what I was waiting for also.
Okay.
So in the next 2 weeks, you'll probably see some more new fishing.
Okay, so obviously you quarantine everything heavily, especially after.
And now they're just sitting in there with no meds, just in Twilight Zone, waiting to go to Disney World.
Yeah. Okay. But do you get you must still have some pests in there, even if it's not sort of diseases, aptasia, flatworms, those sorts of things. How do you deal with that
in the big tank?
Yeah,
sure. We have found flatworms on some corals. Obviously, an egg or two gets through. Aptasia, I don't have an issue in the big system here because the butterflies really nail them. But in other tanks around the house that are connected to this system with no butterflies, we do get them. We're in the managing process. I don't know if I can eliminate it in a tank like this. One of the secrets with flatworms in particularly, if you take an RO bucket and blow them off the coral with RO water with some force, the flatworms come off and the fish eat them.
Okay.
But you need a big enough tank where you're not going to change the salinity. Like we use 100 gallons of RO here, it doesn't even make a dent.
Yeah, okay.
In the tank, so we blow the coral off. I think most of all these corals now have, if they're not epoxy, they're inspected from underneath or turned over. So we've been looking for eggs. We think we're at the worst of it, and now this is just about managing. It's like not a big deal anymore.
I think it's always about managing for everyone, and I think the only scenario I can imagine when you wouldn't have something get through would be maybe a laboratory scenario like Jamie Craig's. But even then, I wonder if they still have issues because it's just you can't do it.
I mean, if you're putting little pieces of sticks in your tank with a little disc, you're not going to miss anything. You're gonna see everything, okay? But go for a colony like this. I'm looking at my hands like this.
yeah.
Okay, and they're tightly clustered acro. You know, you can miss an egg. It's very easy to miss an egg.
Okay. So talk about some of your other tanks, because you've got some other pretty sizable tanks. Are they kind of sort of biotope aquariums or species specific, or what?
They started like that. They started Hawaii specific, or the one upstairs was Coral Sea. But you know, what now is this 2,500 gallon tank that needs to get done, and we're going to make that an unbelievable coral display in my office. We think you'll be busy with that. This 900 drop down will be busy with doing coral, and there'll be coral tanks. They'll be all reef safe fish. Some of these rare fish that are that can go on the margin, and Rashid and I were talking about this, like, you know, these Abai angels and these narcosis angels that we have. They're not. They're 85% reef safe, but I've seen the narcosis, those dwarf angels. I've seen them eat some scoli. I've seen them taste it.
Okay.
Acan, forget it. So we're gonna have to make some decisions on where fish go and what we do with some things and display tanks. Yeah, and you know from this hobby that the bigger, that's one of them. That's the 200 that we will be breaking down and doing the 900 drop down. But there's some really rare fish in this tank.
Yeah, and so the narcosis, I've never heard of a narcosis angel, but it's a dwarf angel from the looks of it.
It's 2 Abai angels, and I have one in the back. So I have 3 of these 6 only collected ever.
Okay.
And then there's that huge Hawaiian deepwater amphias that you see in that cave right there. Is coming out right now. That's you can't get that anymore because Hawaii is closed. And so, you know, what you do in here is we'll have more issues with where we put the fish than the corals.
Yeah, okay. I'm surprised you've got so many fleshy kind of LPS corals in there, actually, that aren't.
Yeah,
and you said that a couple do.
The Abai angels aren't bad. They come from so down deep in Coral Sea that they probably never even seen a coral before.
Yeah. And with the deep water fish, then, do you have to sort of adjust the lighting, or do they just adapt to brighter light?
Either way, depends. But the real issue is the temperature of the water. So we keep these cube tanks about 3 degrees cooler than the main display.
Okay, so that's still not that cool though.
No, but it's cool. Like, if you were just doing it for the fish, I'd probably go down to 72.
Yeah.
But because there's coral in there, I have to settle 74, 75.
Okay, fair enough.
There's one of the rare narcosis angels right there.
Yeah.
He's not so behaved reef safe, but yeah, there's the Hawaiian deep water.
Right, yeah, okay. Yeah, these are extremely unusual fish. I've never seen. I've never even heard of the narcosis or the Abai.
Elliot Lim keeps bidding me for it. He's got 2 other ones or 3 other ones, but they think it's all male, and I have the female. So he keeps wanting to buy it.
Pimp him out.
Yeah, pimp him out. Right, stud him out, stud her out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Brothel.
Yeah. And there's comments coming in about clams. Have you ever thought of clam tank?
Clownfish?
Clams.
Oh, the clam tank. You want? Okay, this is my kryptonite. This is the one failure that we've had here.
Oh, really?
It's attached to the main system, so I know it's not the water per se.
Yep.
We thought at first it was the lights. We used halides and radiums in a half shallow tank, and we were measuring par in the 600, six something. So let's just go with radions and make our par whatever. And we just lost a lot of our clams one at a time. We think it was a combination of pests. Those goddamn snails get in there. The aptasia get in the sand. Then there was this grounding issue in the house where we still have electricity floating around, voltage in the ground, and that particular tank seemed to have most of the shock. Like in the straight voltage land, it was in the sump and that tank, not in the main system. So in any event, some of the clams are in Rashid's house. Some of them are in our vats. And once this electrical problem passes and we fix it, we're going to go back at that clam tank and try again. Make sure there's no pests. That's really key with these clams. And we hope that there's enough nutrients. Like you get all those clams together in one tank in a nitrate that's 7 or 5 already. Like we're wondering whether or not they're starving, even though we feed Fido to them and we close it off, we feed it. So we're not sure exactly what happened in clam tank land. I just know that they're difficult.
I'm picturing, because clams get big, seriously big. So how big are the clams that you've kept?
They were all sizes. We did them all, from small, medium, and large, and we lost them all. It didn't matter.
No. Yeah, okay. One of those things, but I guess everyone's got an Achilles heel, and clams are yours.
We'll figure. Listen. If it's we can't keep clams because of the way the tank is designed, we'll make a carpet anemone and clownfish exhibit or something. Like I'm gonna make that an exhibit somehow. Yeah, they're the clams. Those are some of the corals right there that Rashid took from me because of the electric stuff. We actually broke some tanks down, so they're at Rashid's house.
Ooh, I can't see those.
Waiting for the 2500.
I'm sharing them right now.
Yeah,
brilliant. There we go.
Yeah, you see the clams there. They were in the system.
Oh yeah. Is that a Durasa? No, that's not
the rainbow.
These are some meat corals, and you'll see the clams in a second.
Yeah, there was one on the right. These are Acanthophidias, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they were in my 300 gallon that was attached. That was also getting the electric shock thing. And anyway, we decided not to have that 300 gallon in the back as a display. We're going to use it as a utility tank. We're thinking about getting some Miracle Mud in there and things like that. And why have a display tank in the back when I'm about to have a 900 gallon drop down right here in the front and my office tank? So we were just like, we're doing this. Let's just redo this. Let's just get the corals out of here and redo it. So some of the corals are in the back and some of them are at Rashid's house.
Okay. And I can see that this is a normal tank, for want of a better word, because you've got power heads that I recognize.
It's only 300. Only 300
yeah.
We have multiple locations. There's a piece of Favia right there that was one of my favorites.
Nice.
Yeah.
This one's nice.
Yeah, there's some colors there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And the yellow mushrooms. Yeah, those are all Polo Reef that are just they will come back.
Yeah. And what about non-photosynthetic corals? Is there any desire to keep them?
The only desire I had to keep them was when we did the really deep water peppermint angels, and keeping them. They're coming 350, 400 feet down, and there's very little light. And how do you make a natural home for them? They don't see corals, so we were thinking about more of a spongy. And in my old house, I actually did that. I did sponges and non-photosynthetic gorgonians and a lot of just like rubble type live rock, and it's pretty cool. And the fish are at home, but for your eyes, it ain't the same.
No, okay.
It ain't the eye candy that you're used to.
And you don't have any in your main tank, I take it.
No.
Okay. You mentioned Cipro earlier, so actually I wanted to talk about sort of treatments, and because you must have kind of veterinary advice in this sort of thing. So talk to us about the treatments you use for fish and corals.
So all the fish basically I take Bobby Miller's humble fish approach and his science, but we have retailored some formulations, talking to some other vets and things like that. So we tend to use chloroquine phosphate a little bit more, let's say, than your average hobbyist. I don't like this uranemia is going around, so like I like to bomb it out early and not worry about it. I know with chloroquine I can do that. And then on the antibiotic side, I used to have fish vets used to come here and used to give injections with Baytril injections into the fish. And that kind of skis me out a little bit. And he actually told me that he found that the Cipro bath, if done correctly, that they'll absorb 80% of the Cipro through their body, through their anus, and it doesn't build up in their liver. And that's what I should do more often than not. And we started doing it, and we had tremendous results with it. And then everybody started doing it with their torches and mixing antibiotics and kung fu antibiotic dips for their corals. KFC,
yeah. The recent one, Kung Fu corals.
Yeah, Kung Fu. They're just taking Cipro, amoxicillin, and erythromycin and combining it. Yeah. Why you would need all of those, I'm not sure, but yeah. So Cipro baths, we feed the fish sulfa medications. We think that works well. Feeding them erythromycin actually works well. Just some things that we do a little differently. But other than that, the science is the science.
Yeah, okay. But I feel like this is that's you talking to Mike Paletta, I think. I can see Rashid in the background.
Yeah, Mike. Yeah. That was Mike. That was over that day doing the Coral Magazine shots, and the Coral Magazine spread will be in September. I think I'm allowed to say that, right? I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, it'll be September. People know he already started advertising it, and you'll get the specs of the tank. I didn't want to show it since it hasn't been out, but you'll see actually a list of all the fish, specs of all the tanks. He has a lot of great information. It's like a 5-6 page article.
Oh wow, okay. It must take quite a while to get all that down. I haven't asked how big the tank is in terms of feet and inches.
We don't measure in inches; we measure in feet. It's the same way I don't measure in gallons per hour. I measure gallon per minute here. So in feet, it's look. It really depends on whether you're measuring to the inside of the acrylic or the outside of the acrylic. The acrylic bond is 4 inches, but the widest, it's like basically 16 by 16 by 9. That's in feet.
Okay. And 2 feet of that is below surface.
And of the 9. 2 of the 9 is below grade.
Yeah. Okay.
That's our.
Why did you sink it down 2 feet?
Okay, so that's an interesting question, and what we thought was we wanted our eyes to be to be below the water line. Mm-hmm. So I needed to be 7 feet. For that, I needed a certain amount of clearance above it for the catwalk so you could do some work up there. So we needed 3 feet up there, and then we just dropped the tank down a certain amount of feet depending on what water volume we wanted. If we would have went 3 feet down instead of 2 feet down, we actually think we would have thrown off the center of the water column, and you would have seen fish too low. So it was sort of a calculated interpolation, let's put it that way.
Okay,
there's a good shot, Alex, if you want to share.
Yeah, you see, that's a good shot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hang on, here we go. Okay, that does give you an idea of the scale. And this the pipe coming down at the front corner that we're seeing.
There's two front corner pipes like that, and they are viciously probably the strongest pumps. and so the corals. We actually on the left hand side, that island, some of the corals on the left hand side, we had to keep changing out because they wouldn't stand for the constant flow,
Right.
pounding flow that you wouldn't see unless. Like Rashid goes in, the diver goes in, and you see the bubbles going up, and you see how it hits it. But so and then those big pipes in the back that we talked about, the surge valves, when they're on, they take some of the pressure off those big front corner ones.
Yeah, you can see them better.
Okay.
Here. This next screen.
Yeah. I see. Yeah. So the fish are huge. There's a right by the arrow. There's an angel. What's it called? The emperor angel. It's that must be bigger than your head, right?
There's two of them, and they caught up to each other. One used to be bigger than the other. They're about the same now.
Okay.
And we've seen them spawn.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. There's one big male scribbled. I wasn't sure whether I should give him a female mate or not, but that was a decision at one point.
The emperor sound while they're feeding. Sometimes I'll be in there and feed.
Oh, they're loud. They're grunters. Yeah.
They're pretty spooky. Let's just say that.
Okay, so you can hear that outside of the tank, just in the.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay.
Well, when I'm diving inside, I could hear like they literally come right by my ear, and I could. It's probably the loudest of all fish.
So I've scuba dived before, and the first thing that hits you when you go below the surface is all the clicking and the noises.
Yes.
Do you get the same sort of thing with that?
Yes,
Same exact
same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
I plug my ears just to be safe.
That's really cool. And what about, so you've got a load of tangs and multiple fish of the same species. Do they kind of pair off, or do they have harem behavior? How do they do?
Both. Occasionally, there's some fight, some play, some. They definitely, the butterflies pair off. Like the two wrought irons go off, the other two go, and they hate each. Two fight with the other two. Where else do we see pairing? Like I'll see my annularises fight like crazy, and then all of a sudden they're together during breeding season. I told you the triggers are constantly breeding in the sand. Crosshatch triggers and the blue throats. They're breeding, and when they breed, they bite the divers. I mean, Rashid gets bitten all the time. Get the hell out of here.
Triggers are some of the most aggressive fish in the sea, pound for pound, aren't they?
Yeah.
And actually, so this is a good question. Do you have any micro species in the main tank? Shrimp, goby pairs, anemone shrimps, those sorts of things. I guess inverts would just get eaten. But...
like there may be some small gobies and snails and stuff like that, but no. I was even thinking about putting mandarins and stuff in this big tank, and I decided to save it for the 2500 because you probably just can't see it. You're just gonna miss it.
I've seen you'd need 100 to notice them, but I've seen
right.
I've seen the mating behavior of mandarins in the wild, and it's probably similar to other fish. To be fair, they sort of shoot up in the air and do this little dance. But that's really cool, and they have harems. So if you had, I don't know, 50 of them or whatever, then it would be worth it. But if you put a couple in, you'd just never see them.
Yeah, exactly, and they're not the easiest to get through quarantine. And then you get the ones that are aura whatever ready, and you're not sure whether you should blast them with meds or not. Like it's so confusing. I got those yellow purple tangs coming. I told you that I bought a couple of those, and okay, it's a pretty stupidly priced fish. I mean, you take a $80 fish and a $200 fish, and somehow they're worth several thousand each, but I guess they don't meet in the wild, and the supply is at least controlled for now. But I don't know what to do with them. Like, do you send them through meds, or you just do tank transfer and a couple of dips? And And so some of these small captive breds are challenging from quarantine because you wonder whether the meds are worse than what they got.
Yeah. Okay.
Where
So
are they coming from? How are they getting the disease? I mean, unless there's anyway, that's and most of them are very small and babies, so you really don't want to put them through copper and ruin the lateral line and all that stuff.
Right. Okay. So I saw a couple of these you would have seen before. There's two in the UK, and I saw them in the flesh, and they obviously they're juvenile, so they don't have their natural colours, and I can't work out if they're going to look like they have the body of a purple tang with the fins of a yellow tang, or how they're going to look if they'll just end up mottled and like a scopas. Have you any idea, Inkling?
I hope it's not you. I think you invented this quote that if you take purple and brown and yellow Play-Doh, you get brown. Was that you?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't like that.
But I did point out.
But I think it's good. I think the body will be scribbled somehow. I don't know how dark a purple, and I think the fins will be yellow. Yes, I think something like that.
But that's kind of.
But it won't be as purple as a purple tang. It will just be something different, I guess.
But part of the interest with that is that you don't know what it's going to look like, so you get to kind of see that, I guess.
Yeah, we'll start with a few and see, and I'd start with them maybe in the 2,500.
And so if you were to add tangs or some fish, any new fish to the main tank,
I would not take a chance on gang tang war.
Yeah.
In there, I did add the last bunch of tangs I added were completely different species. The polyzona, the polyzona zebra tangs, which it's like a convict tang. There's no fighting, but you put in more zebra somas. I don't want to do that.
No. It would be. I'd imagine it'd be quite
desire to increase the stress level of and the gang warfare there.
You notice the tanks, you call them the bodies. You don't see many fins because they did over the years. They went at it.
So this is feeding on nori from the looks of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and show you this.
This is another.
Hold on.
Oh, that's hand feeding.
Yeah.
That's not the way we do it. That's not the way we really do it.
Yeah, let me actually stop this for a second.
There are complicated ways and a lot of technology, but then there is a lot of simple ways. And one of the things that we try to figure out initially is how are we going to get these tangs and all these fish nori?
You can share again.
Like, what am I going to do? Put clips on the wall? I can't do that. So we got these huge poles, which people use in their swimming pools. The nets with the nets, so you can net out the leaves. And we put a rope on the pole, and we attach it to PVC pipe on a T, and then we hang about 10 clips each from that PVC pipe, and we literally roll them down and roll them up twice a day. Put the seaweed in the clips and let the fish go at it and roll them up. And when we do medicate the food with antibiotics and stuff, I like to soak the seaweed. I think they get the most out of it than frozen, etc.
So you soak the seaweed. Is that just as a matter of course, or if there's an issue, is it just you just do it all the time?
I soak the seaweed in Celcon and vitamins anyway, a couple of times a week. But when there's an issue, I go to the Metro triple sulfa TMP sulfa antibiotic as my go-to. I've tried making these cakes with the Missouri powder, but they're not into it. So soaking the nori actually seems to work.
Okay, interesting. So I'm just experimenting with soaking food in vitamins and that sort of thing myself, but I'm interested to see what difference it makes. All right, I mean the feeding frenzy is crazy, and this must be kind of the highlight of your day, is it?
That's from inside the tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The other frenzy is from outside the tank, but do you have a nori feed somewhere or no? You don't have one on the PVC pipes.
I'll have to look for it.
I've seen that on the Worldwide Corals video. I saw
Yeah,
these
it's
enormous
just like
holes.
the lowest low tech thing you can think of actually worked, and that's good to know, right? Like everything doesn't have to be Skynet computer stuff.
Yeah, if it works, it works.
Right, exactly. You should see how I told you how we pick corals off the bottom. We literally have a hook on a pole.
Yeah.
One of those poles that, again, from the swimming pools with like a captain hook,
Okay.
and we go hook fishing and we pick up corals, like we hook them.
Yeah, but I mean, you must have to repurpose things like that, because why create something bespoke that would cost you 10,000 when you can spend $50 on a pool pole?
Yeah, and you know, like what it's hard to place the corals back to where they belong once you get them on the hook. So we just put them in the back until the next dive and something like that.
Okay. All right, so we've gone through my list of questions, and I've asked all of the things that I wanted to ask. I've seen questions about how many pounds of food a day you had, and I think someone was saying you had 5 pounds of frozen food. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, it's probably 5 pounds with the weight of the water in it. But we defrost it in the morning. We mix. I mix everybody's food. I'm a Larry's fan. I'm a P. Mice's fan. I'm a
Reef Frenzy.
Reef. I love them all. I love you all. We even go to the local fish mart here, the fish market, and my chef chops up fresh clam and mussel, and we freeze that, and we defrost that, and we defrost it all at once, and we rinse it. It goes in a big jar, goes in the refrigerator, and that's the food for the day, for the whole house. And if we have to medicate, we do it separately. We take that food and then, medicate it.
Yeah, this is actually a good question. Kyle Beaumont, like he asked, I don't think we ever intentionally added pods into the main display, but
No.
I'm pretty sure they got in there with.
They're in there.
Oh, the coral.
We didn't have to. We didn't have to.
Yeah.
That's why. We just didn't have to.
Yeah.
There's so many pods in there. You see it in the sump. I take the carbon bags out.
So someone had a question. Spike Bose, you mentioned mutable mud. What are your thoughts?
Miracle Mud.
Yeah, I think okay.
Miracle
Mud. What are your thoughts on the system, benefits and drawbacks? Because I know we're considering that for the 300, right?
So, there is some anecdotal evidence. I wouldn't even say it's very anecdotal. It's observation. You know the science in this industry is lacking. That if there's mud in a system, there's some sort of trace elements released or something like that. And some of the lateral line in tanks, that disease, the hole in the head goes away. The scars go away, et cetera, et cetera. We had some of that happen in the beginning, particularly when the ozone was going heavy and we were using very strong carbon from BRS, the ROX 0.8, which we don't use anymore. And we were using it in a pool filter and it was flying around. And now we're very calm in a reactor. So the damage that was done is done, and we don't think there's any new damage. But if there's a way of healing it better, I'm all for it. And so you need a utility tank that sort of runs through the system and has the surface area, and we have to figure out where the trays of mud are going to go and how do we pull it out and all that stuff. We may even make it a refugium. Growing some macroalgae in there, but that's what we're going to attempt to do.
Okay.
Trying to avoid the effects of ozone and carbon, which can take a toll on some fish.
Okay.
Okay. So Rashid, I think I've caught all the questions that I wanted to, but are there any that I've missed that you wanted to pull up whilst we're here?
There's one. No, I think we hit all of them, and we're probably at a 2-hour mark. So
Wow, is that 2 hours?
Yeah, we're at 2 hours.
That's unbelievable.
I get to hit the LIE traffic and get back home. So
That's great.
I think we.
I enjoyed it, Alex. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this was great.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It was a really good. It was great to have you on and have a chat. And the tank is just unlike anything any of us have ever seen, and it's fantastic to see it, and that you share it on Facebook and YouTube and so on. So. Brilliant.
And yet, every one of those people that come in and see it in person, they all say the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. Holy cow! You can't capture half of what I see now on video.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And I'm not sure why or how or whatever, but it is what it is.
Even the photos showing the living room as well, it just shows the scale, something completely different. It's
right.
I can't imagine. And there's a few other comments I've pulled up as well that I've noticed that people have been complimenting you on how knowledgeable you are, and this is obviously something you don't do something like this unless it's your passion. So
that's true. You have to be passionate, persistent, almost a perfectionist personality. And nuts.
I was going to say exactly
because
that.
Honestly, had I known what I would have went through to get here, certainly now, 10 years later, I would not have done this.
Okay.
So you got to be young too, and you got to be young with some dollars, which is also hard, right?
Yeah.
10 years later, I would never do this again.
You've got to be prepared to burn some money
in your 40s.
So Alex, I'm gonna we've never done this before, but since we have it set up for it, I'm gonna have a treat for everyone by feeding the tank live. So
sure.
See it, but we're not gonna do that unless we have a shameful plug, which is
a what?
A shameful plug. We have Polo Reef by Andrew Sandler YouTube that you can go visit and see a lot of these videos in. That's constantly being refined. We have our Facebook group, Polo Reef by Andrew Sandler. And of course, we also have our Instagram for the folks who like their short videos, Polo_Reef.
And I have to change the music for each one of those the ages. It's really strange how the interaction of the music in each one of those categories are.
Yeah. So
okay. Well, I'll put links to all of those in the description after the video. I think there's the YouTube channel already, but I'll post everything else as well after this.
Oh, you gonna feed? Who you gonna ask? Dodd right now? All right, we're gonna do a feeding frenzy right now for you.
Okay. What time is it, by the way? It must be 5 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Quick thank you, by the way, to everybody for coming along as well. Good to have you all along here.
Thank you very much.
And someone, Paul Lakeside Reaper, says the Yankees won today as well.
Always good for New York.
Oh, actually, do you know what? Someone asked earlier if you sell the Polo Reef t-shirts.
Okay, so as long as we're on that subject, the website, we need the website up and operational. So the store works, and it will be significantly more than T-shirts. There'll be hats, coffee mugs, stickers, sweatshirts, sweatpants, hoodies, half zippies, ... And all of the gross profit that we generate, my share of the gross profit, will be going to charity and philanthropy and reef conservation. And we're just waiting for the website and the giveaways. That's all. This should come together in the next month and a half, and that store will be operational.
Excellent. Okay, really nice to hear. And I think it looks like the Fisher, they know something's happening, right?
They sense something. They must see his shadow up there.
Yeah, they know when Don's back there.
Here we go. Where's the food?
It's coming. He's getting up there. He's gonna feed him both seaweed and.
Oh, okay. There's some frozen.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, move over
I'm gonna
to the
move.
side.
I'm gonna
There you
move.
go. There it is. He's gonna put the. He's gonna drop the seaweed in there shortly, Alex.
Yeah. 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 Okay.
Sunday dinner. Yeah, exactly. Well, Alex, if you're ever in the New York area, you're gonna have to come visit and see this finally live.
That would be quite something. My fiance has been pestering me to go to New York for a while, so maybe I should give her what she wants.
Amazing during Christmas time.
Yeah, yeah, I bet it is. Yeah, they're going for it, aren't they?
Oh yeah, and you just put a second.
And just so you know, we strategically put the food in some of that top front corner, so it blows down to the gobies and
Yep.
it blows down
Yep,
to
yep.
the tilefish that live down at the bottom.
Yeah, otherwise they'll probably knock it all out in like a minute.
You do loading seaweed up?
Yeah.
Does the tank make noise in the main room?
The
Can you hear it?
200-gallon cube is 5 times as. I got to get one of those noise reduction things for the overflow. It's 5 times as noisy, this little tank.
Yeah.
Right.
The main display for your answer is no.
No, it's because the engine
No.
and everything else, and
Yeah.
the back of the tank was soundproof.
Yeah.
All right. Seaweed should come down very soon.
Okay.
Just so you can see the simplicity of feeding sometimes is great. And one thing
Do they all disappear at night? Do they all go into the rockwork?
No, we have a pretty bright moonlight on, and I would say a third of the fish, the butterflies, the heniocuses, and the nasos, they're still cruising around at night, and then maybe a third of them sort of go in.
Yeah.
It's quiet, but you still see activity.
Yeah, okay.
We're getting a lot of people saying they want another 2 to 3 hours live stream.
Come on.
Yeah. Well, guys, to the Ocean Project, that project, no pun intended, is on its way. I mean, we're hoping to have a live stream of this. The footage. I mean, I think they quoted some of the cameras. You know, obviously we're not purchasing these or in like the hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? The footage you'll get from inside the tank already is unreal. But if you get a camera to capture it correctly, it'll be something special. For sure.
How far? You're quite a long way from Ohio, right? That's halfway across the country.
Yeah, it's about 5 hours.
Because I'm thinking Than from Tidal Gardens would do a special job of filming this.
Well, I
He'll
don't
be
know.
here shortly.
We have Than booked.
Excellent.
Than will be here the week after Macna. So we spoke to Than. He was the first we spoke to because we knew we always appreciated his videos.
Yeah.
You know, so I talked to Than on a regular basis, and yes, he'll be here shooting this tank very soon.
Excellent. Well, here's the low tech feeding pole pipe.
Yeah.
There it is. Yes.
He puts another one in. We'll have 2 in there in a second.
And Alex, our StreamYard showing the video perfectly 1080p, but it looks like the actual YouTube probably needs a little bit of process time.
It's yeah, it might get better. So it's 1080p the stream, but it might get better later. But
Okay.
it's got to go through internet connection, so
Got it. Yep.
might be reduced a little bit.
All right. So guys, come back and watch us.
Yeah.
I'll put timestamps in the description as well, so you can see. You can just scan through to whichever point on the stream. But
Yeah, that'd be great. We got a question from Fish Addict. Would you say that it's okay to put tank bred fish in a small tank compared to wild caught ones, angelfish, for example?
So, what was that question exactly again?
Would you say it's okay to put tank bred fish
Yeah.
in small tanks compared to wild caught ones, angelfish? For
Because they never saw the wild and they know
maybe they're not as ferocious as these guys.
you're not taking it from the ocean. I don't know. I would think
That's a good question for the biotas if they ever end up here.
I would think it's somewhere in between, maybe, but you still got to give that species the chance to grow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that was a conversation we had in the car coming up here. It's like, where do we put certain things in one?
Yeah.
So the tank is getting a little bit bluer now, right? We had some light shifts over 2 hours. So.
Yeah, 5. Some of the whites went off.
Yep.
because there's so much food, it doesn't seem that there's any real, any aggression there. Everyone just seems like we're all going to get some. It's okay. We don't need to fight.
And usually there's a second one of these things coming down.
On the other side, yep.
On the other side. I don't know whether he's loading it up or it's just not coming today, but whatever.
These guys get fed really well, Alex. I mean, we're talking 5 times a day.
Yeah.
Your average hobbyist doesn't do that. They're feeding once or twice a day. I know some folks will feed on a regular basis, kind of worldwide coral kind of methodology. And then because of that, with the increased pH and good quality water, and I think someone mentioned something about water changes earlier, there's constant water changes to buffer out any toxins in here. There's so much eating and pooping for the corals. So I'm telling you, this you guys got to follow this tank. It's going to be something special. I'm not saying that just to get more folks to subscribe or look at our. It's like to see this every day is quite inspirational for sure.
Well, the Facebook page and the YouTube channel are now linked in the description of the video, and there are some cracking videos, proper high definition videos in there. So they're well worth checking out.
And you will see a lot more of that in the months of September and October. I mean, that was one of my main roles, but then my roles, Alex, became, like making sure we have a proper coral care process and fine tuning the lab and creating the website and creating syllabuses for FAU. But we're going to get you some high quality, footage here of the tank inside and outside and all around. So just stay tuned with us. We're going to make sure we get some good stuff out there for you guys.
Well, I'll really look forward to the Tidal Gardens video. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, he'll be here, and we have to work on our MACDA presentation. But I probably gave you like a third, half of it just talking about it, like off the cuff.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right, Alex. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys for watching.
Indeed, yeah. And thanks again, Rashid and Andrew, for coming along. It's been
Thank you.
great. So
Thanks.
yeah. All right, and I will see everybody next week. Catch you later. Bye, guys.